Well, I'm Richard Ewald. I'm a volunteer for Brattleboro Area Hospice, and this is the program called Living and Dying, which brings you news and information about Brattleboro Area Hospice. Today, on a day in late June, it's sort of blustery and a little bit overcast out here in Williamsville. We're at a place called the Manitou Project. It was founded by Pam Mayer, who is also a founder of Brattleboro Area Hospice. And joining me today to talk about the connection between these two organizations are Ryan Murphy, who is a hospice care coordinator for Brattleboro Area Hospice, and Fred Taylor, who is on the board of the Manitou Project. And they are both, in fact, on the board of the Manitou Project.
Fred's the president.
Fred's the president. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Fred. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Rich.
Welcome to Manitou.
Well, thanks. It feels odd for me to welcome you here because you've been here more than I have. So what is this connection between Brattleboro Area Hospice and Manitou?
Well, for me it's very, very clear. The connection is Pam Mayer, the person Rich just mentioned. One of the very, very important founding members of our organization, Brattleboro Area Hospice, and also the founder, along with her husband David, of the Manitou Project. And it's a very, very natural collaboration that we're attempting to strengthen and build. It's Pam's legacy that both programs are attempting to honor and to offer to the community, which was her vision from the very beginning. I should say just briefly that there was a third organization called the Vermont Healing Tools, which Pam also was involved in beginning. And all of them, the three of them, she called sister organizations because they were committed to providing opportunities for people to heal, essentially, from whatever situation they may be facing.
One of the things, the qualities about Pam that I think is so inspirational to us, both with Manitou and with Hospice, is the quality of presence that she brought to whatever she did. And for those of us who had a chance to be with Pam on the Manitou land, it was just an amazing, almost childlike, mystical sense of being able to be present to whatever is here. She had amazing experiences with dying hawks and nature spirits and trees. I mean, you name it, Pam opens to the unknown in a remarkable way. And my sense is that, although I didn't know her as well through the context of Hospice, that with Hospice too, she was able to open to the mystery that she saw as the reality of death. And so she was able to help be with that mystery in a way that was life-giving and nourishing and healing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I first met her in 1985 when I took the volunteer training, and that was before Manitou had started. And over all those years, it was a long hiatus, but when we reconnected, she was just even more alive then than when I knew her 25 or 30 years prior to that. And on the land, as you're saying, Fred, she would just come alive in a very, very special way. And she had such deep, deep trust in the healing and beneficent energies of the land that was palpable to us that would be here with her.
Well, I just came here from Brattleboro. It was about a half-hour drive out to up Route 30 and out through Williamsville and up onto the hill here, and we've left Brattleboro a world behind. You know, the trees are moving in the wind here. I think a lot of us who spend our time thinking about death and dying and living in that, in the awareness of that, find in nature a certain quietness that helps us quiet down a little bit too. And it seems that Pam always talked about transformation, healing, and the sacred, being very connected to nature. I remember that she called herself an Episcopagan.
That's correct.
Yes. Which is sort of brought in her upbringing and then what she found out here. I know Hospice talks about working with people on a spiritual basis without any agenda.
Right.
And that certainly sounds pretty open-ended, that point of view.
She was nothing if not open.
Yeah.
And and she did refer to herself as an Episcopagan. quite accurately. And if you talk further with her, you would get perhaps a more, I don't know, less humorous. She really saw herself as a Celtic Christian, in that she was raised and very much loved the Episcopalian Church and the rites of it, and actually her grandfather was a bishop. But she also had a deep, as we're talking, commitment to and faith in the natural world. So just as when Christianity came to the Celtic world and they embraced it, but combined it with their nature-based spirituality, that's pretty much what Pam did. And she was a pilgrim all her life in that way, always looking for...
Great word for her, yeah.
Yeah.
So philosophically, I can see the connections between hospice and this marvelous 300 acres, but are there ways that the programs are working together? How has Brattleboro Area Hospice had a presence here?
Well, we're building it, and we began just about a year ago to kind of formalize it. I, as you mentioned, am a member of the board, which we call the council, and I can remember talking to Pam about how much really deep value she felt about that collaboration. She really thought that it would make both organizations more effective and stronger, and it's just a really natural fit. So we were talking about that, and Fred and I in particular started to take on ways of offering Manitou programs to the hospice community, and of course beyond. But we last fall had a program here for our volunteers to come and join us in our healing walk. And we continue to think of ways that we can offer more, and again, I want to be clear, it's for the wider community as well. But we're thinking of incorporating some time at Manitou into the volunteer training at some point.
Well, you've mentioned a healing walk. How about if we do a little bit of that walking and see a little bit more of these 300 acres?
That'd be great. Yeah.
I'd like to hear what Tom Wessels would be saying all this time, but this is like
one of my favorite Pam Mayer stories is about that geodesic dome, which used to be our only covered structure here. It was covered with canvas, and then after years of being out in the rain and the wind and the snow, the canvas fell apart, and so we decided we needed another kind of structure. So we worked on building this hogan. We moved the dome away from the site where it had been, and at first we were just going to get rid of it, but then Pam had a vision that we needed a balancing of the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, the two different poles of our experience, and that the hogan and the open frame of the dome would provide that.
They belong together.
They belong together.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we meet inside the hogan, sometimes we meet outside under the structure.
The skinless
of
dome.
The skinless dome, which does, and it's interesting because even though it doesn't perform any function in terms of protecting you from the weather, it does create a space.
Yeah.
And it's really a lovely space to be in. So, but that's one of the kind of intuitive visions of which Pam has had many that have really shaped the landscape and the structures on it and the trails. And
I don't think we had mentioned that Pam was an energy dowser, but indeed she was. And she also used that to identify what we call sacred sites. And are there about 7 of them?
I think maybe 10 now.
Maybe 10.
Yeah. Some of them are trees, some of them there's a spring, the labyrinth, and the in-between place. With Pam, with whatever she did, there was always the possibility for an impish, playful outburst. So coming out here with her and clearing trails was likely to be not just hard work, but fun.
Fun and adventuresome and inspirational often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course she would come out with these gems.
Yeah.
You'd just be working with her on the side of the road and the trail, and she'd come out with something like, the way I experience sacred place is through being totally present. And when I'm totally present, the sacredness of the land comes alive for me.
Yeah.
And I remember on one of those walks when she just came out with that.
Mhm.
So this is our outhouse.
Yeah, you can see.
It's just a single seater, though.
Yeah. Well, one is better than none.
Yeah. This is the path to the labyrinth. And let's go on in there. So this is the labyrinth. It was one of the first sacred sites to be set aside. And come on in and I'll tell you a little bit the story of how it came about. This is a great example of Pam's Episcopagan side because it was actually modeled on the labyrinth in the basement of Chartres Cathedral. And Pam believed that the labyrinth was very much an expression of a healing journey that was expressed in many religious traditions. But we've kept the labyrinth, as you can see, very much in a natural state. There's a lot of ferns and moss, and it's just a great way to be out in the midst of the natural world. The story of how it was found is interesting because when Pam knew that she wanted to have a labyrinth on the Manitou land, she went out and dowsed a number of different sites. This particular site had been logged in a very unmindful way, and it was left ravaged. And so something inspired her to come here with her dowsing rods, and she was amazed to discover that this was the place that spoke, and that this was the place that wanted to be the labyrinth. And so I think that in itself is an interesting metaphor for our union of hospice and Manitou, that in the midst of wounding there is great potential for healing.
That's right.
And the land expresses that in so many ways. We occasionally will have labyrinth walks, and we'll invite people to come to maybe bring a question, to bring a dilemma that they're facing, or just to walk mindfully in the labyrinth. And it always brings something, a new insight, a sense of deeper connection to the ground, the earth. And
Well, it can be an opportunity for enhanced self-awareness, just mindfully walking.
Right over here, I see a stone with the name Richard Bremer on it and some dates.
Yes, Dick Bremer was, he was one of the early Manitou members, and he was a dowser. He worked with Pam quite possibly to douse this particular place. Dick developed cancer and was involved with hospice throughout his dying process, and was very much involved with Manitou throughout his dying process. He was an amazing guy. He was also a student of mine in one of my writing classes. He had a great sense of humor. He brought a sense of humor and joy and adventure to whatever he did, and he brought that to Manitou in a way that was really a gift to us all. And he was one of the people for whom being on the Manitou land was an important part of his passing on into the great mystery. So he experienced that here and shared that with us. One of the themes that emerged when we were talking about our collaboration last year was the idea of embodiment,
Exactly.
and that both Manitou and hospice are ways of inviting people more deeply into their embodied experience, whether it's the experience of dying or the experience of being on the land. And the labyrinth really invites us to be more fully embodied by walking mindfully, by awareness of breath, by feeling our feet on the ground as we walk.
Yeah, that's very true, and I think it's a very important part of this collaborative experience, is that when people are hurting, when people are facing the challenges of a terminal illness or virtually any kind of pain, emotional or physical, there's a tendency for us to kind of remove ourselves from our physical bodies, and just coming onto the land and walking begins to reconnect us And it's a very, very, almost, I don't want to say concrete, because it's, you know, it's a very real and viable experience for people to experience healing through that. And so that's one of the things that we're very aware of. We're always looking for ways to help people understand in almost practical terms what it is about being on the land that can provide for healing. And that's certainly one of the basic ones, is to become more grounded.
I guess I would just say from my own experience that one of the things I often experience at Manitou is arriving here in somewhat of a state of frenzy. You described driving up from Brattleboro. We leave our world behind of our busy lives. And there's something about stepping onto the land here that just, I can feel my breath begin to slow down. I can feel the presence of the land and all of the life that's here begin to seep into my pores. And so I experience healing here in a very concrete, daily way, just by tuning in. And there's something about the land, I think, because of the fact that it's been so lovingly tended for decades now, and the sacred sites bring a sense of energy to us, so that there's definitely something unique about being on this piece of land.
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, one of the keys is to understand that people have been coming here for, 23 or 4 years now, and bringing to it a sense of reverence. And I believe that energy cumulatively gets harnessed and contained within the confines of Manitou, and is available then to people that are open to it. It's a wonderful thing.
You know, as we walk through the property too, we see the old stone walls from the previous, the farming or the pasturing and the logging, which you mentioned. So the Manitou is now located in that time frame of everything that's happened here, and also opens the time frame to everything that happened long before anyone arrived here.
Yeah, it's
sort of magical that way.
Yeah, we think of it as being alive, and in the process of transformation and offering transformation. So, we're about to move to what we call in-between place, which we will learn more about when we get there, but this is the path we take when we do our healing walks. And it's been dedicated as a entryway into the sanctuary, which we will talk a little bit more when we get there.
So we're in between what and what?
Well, that's a very good question. That's the
I think that
Depending
operates
between the ineffable and the unnameable.
well, that'll do for now. Sure. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. We talk about between the worlds.
Yeah. Well, literally, it's the place between the forest and the fence. The world.
Well, the world, the natural world and the spirit world, would be another. Not that they're separate, but they have differences.
This looks like a gathering place here. I
It
see some
is.
dowsing sticks.
Yeah.
Is this a good place to describe the in-between place?
It is.
Yeah.
So I think I asked it sort of humorously before, we're in between what and what?
Well, again, Rich, I think it depends who you ask for, who you ask on any given day. I think, for example, Pam would talk about the place between two different worlds, so to speak. That once you enter into the sanctuary area and begin a reflective, contemplative, embodied experience of it, that you can actually enter into another dimension. One of the things we do, the walk is done pretty much silently, contemplatively, but we do stop at 5 different locations, 4 of them being guardian trees, we call them, which represent the 4 directions. And at those points we say a prayer which evokes the qualities of the direction from a book called Earth Poems. And particularly to the east, which is a place of new beginnings, I can so clearly see Pam go into a reverie at that point. You know, when we put our backs to the fen and allow that sacred energy to flow through us out into the world. And she would just be thoroughly absorbed in what was coming because she knew she was getting close to her own death, which occurred about a year and a half ago. And those last couple of years, I mean, just invariably at that point, facing to the east, she would allow herself to just become lost in what was ever out there, what she called the mystery. It was quite something to be part of.
She sometimes used a word transparency to describe the sense of openness that you're describing. And she even described that at one point as a quality that she learned from her cancer experience. That as she became more aware of what she was experiencing through the cancer, she opened to larger and larger parts of her being. And she called that a sense of being transparent to the worlds beyond.
And she did a remarkable piece of writing about that experience as well, in which she described her process of being as inclusive as she possibly could be, including the cancer she had at that time, and just not fragmenting parts of her experience or her reality. And it was quite inspiring.
So I'm getting a better sense of between what, and it sounds like Pam found, and there's possible to experience in some way for many of us, an awareness of death while we're alive that has an honest acceptance to it, that involves sort of a veil or something that we don't normally experience. And I think whereas we might have a flash of that from time to time, that Pam, in being here, was able to remain in that state for a little bit longer and find both the preciousness of life and the shortness of life and being alive and having the awareness of death sort of all.
I think that's well said, and I think she welcomed it. I think she became more and more fascinated with what was on the other side of this earthly existence, which again, what she called the mystery. But, you know, as our friend Greg McAllister said when I was describing to him the way she died, she had a massive stroke, and she stayed at home in her little apartment for 5 days and then died. But she would raise her head and come out with some of the most amazing things. Am I actively dying? Yes, Pam. Oh, well, this isn't really so bad. Discomfort and displeasure are irrelevant in the eyes of the Almighty. And then she would, and so Greg said she modeled for us, which I thought was right on. Yeah, she did.
Well, given all this, this really feels like an absolutely wonderful place for hospice volunteers to come.
Absolutely.
To sort of, to get some taste of that, some experience of that, as they go about their work.
Well, I think there's a really important, excuse me, I didn't hear the last thing.
Well, as part of their work to be with people who are actively dying.
Yes. Yes, because it's an opportunity for them to be nurtured, and they provide nurturance. And I think we all know we need to feed ourselves in a way that allows us to continue to be able to provide that for others. And I think here, very much so, there's an opportunity for that to happen for folks. So yes, it's a great opportunity for hospice volunteers. And as we said in the beginning, we're looking for new and important ways to build more opportunities for them to come here.
For many years, Manitou has seen part of its mission as healing the healers, or providing opportunity for healing for those who are in turn healing others. This goes way back to the early history of healing tools too. So I think one of the things that makes us so excited about this collaboration with hospice is that this is a wonderful manifestation of that idea, that hospice volunteers can come here and themselves find nurturance, find healing and inspiration that helps them then to go out and do their work with also more transparency and openness and
absolutely
and groundedness.
Yeah, and there's a real alchemy that you know, it's very much an experience that's grounded in our individual selves, but we're always aware of being part of this group. And every walk is different. And there is a mutuality of the caring that is larger than any single individual.
Don't you almost get the sense that Pam had this in mind all along?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
before we go, I want to read this one statement that she wrote about this particular place, which I think really captures what it means, what it meant to her, what it means to a lot of us. She went out and sat on a quartz rock, I guess it was around the other side of the sanctuary trail, and sitting on the quartz rock, she asked a question: what must I do to carry out your wishes for Manitou at this time? She's asking this to the spirit of Manitou. This is what I hear in response. I want this sanctuary to represent something new and beautiful. It is to be the heart of that larger body which you have called the Manitou land. The land as a whole is a place for healing, and this sanctuary is to be its sacred center, a place where humans, as well as creatures, as well as spirits, are invited to reach out to one another, listen to one another, share each other's joys and sorrows and concerns. The larger healing will take many forms, and its final shape will depend on the people who are called to offer whatever their gifts and skills may be. And that certainly has the sense of invitation to it too, that we, Pam has inspired us with over the years, and we want to pass on to others that this is a place where we welcome people to come with their gifts and with their needs, and to share. And one of our new taglines is community with nature, that this is a place where we come to find community with the natural world, with each other, and a give and take of gifts and just the sacredness of our being together. So this is our welcoming kiosk, which includes a map of the Manitou land and trail systems, which if you can zoom in on it, you can see there are many, many trails in this 300 acres of land. We today just walked from here to here and back, but it goes on for miles, and there's wild high places and big grandmother trees and all sorts of wonderful spots to explore. Yeah. This is a mural that was created by young people at an art mural summer camp a few years ago with the help of artist Karen Becker. And we just want to invite folks to come to the land and experience its healing powers. We especially want to encourage you to come to the healing walks, which happen every other Friday, the second and fourth Friday afternoons from 4 to 6. Rain or shine. We've been in some rainy ones, and they've been memorable too.
Yep.
So
just show up right here. Go to the Manitou, Vermont website, and you'll get all the information you need, including directions on how to find us. And there's no need for any kind of registration. Just be here at 4 on the second or the fourth Friday, and be ready for some time in the woods. There'll be links to things that are happening between Brattleboro Area Hospice and Manitou at both of our websites. So the Brattleboro Area website is newly rebuilt, and I encourage you to visit it and explore.
The Manitou website is www.manitouproject.org, and it's also newly redesigned with lots of pictures of the land and calendar for all our programs. We have a variety of programs happening this summer, so check it out and see what speaks to you.
And I have to take the opportunity to just let the wider community know that Brattleboro Area Hospice is able to offer volunteer support to people that are facing a potentially terminal illness with a prognosis of less than 2 years, and that's significantly different than the traditional hospice eligibility guideline. So we encourage everyone who has a question or an interest to call, and all inquiries will be responded to. Thank you.
Fred, thank you very much. Ryan, thank you very much.
Thank
and
you.
thanks for joining us. And thank all the mosquitoes who left us a little bit of blood.